When did the flame become yours to keep alive? Who taught you that the light in you would go out the moment your hands got too tired to guard it? I never asked you to be the fire. I asked you only to hold the lamp. And right now, as I speak, I want to walk you back to where the light has really been coming from. All this long while, you believed it depended on you. You would not answer me at first. You would go quiet. The way you always go quiet when someone asks how you are truly doing, and then waits for the answer. Then, if I stayed near long enough, you would tell me the truth in pieces. You never decided the flame was yours. It simply became yours. One season of holding everything together, and then another, and then a long stretch. No one else reached for the match, so you learned to be the one who kept the light on, in the house, in the family, in your own thinning faith. You would admit you are tired in a way that sleep does not reach. And I hear more in that broken little confession than in the bravest prayer you have ever performed for me. I want you to notice what you did just then, even in your imagination. You reached for the explanation before you reached for any comfort. You told me how the responsibility landed on you, as though I might need convincing that it was fair. You do that with everyone. You explain the weight before you ever admit it is heavy. But I did not ask you to justify the load. I asked you a simpler thing. You almost missed it under all the reasons. I asked when the light became your responsibility to keep. And the truest answer you have is that you cannot remember a time when it wasn't. That is not a small thing to carry. That is a whole way of living. Learned so early you mistook it for your personality. And here is what I would say next if you let me. I am not disappointed by that answer. Some people hand me their strength and wait for the applause. You are not one of them. You handed me a lifetime of holding everything together, and then you apologized for being tired at the end of it. That tells me almost everything I need to know about the kind of heart you carry. It also tells me you have believed, somewhere far down where you rarely look, that what I wanted from you was to be impressive. That my nearness was something you had to earn, by how much you could shoulder without ever letting it show. It never was. I have only ever wanted you close enough to be filled. You have been spending yourself for years, earning a thing I was already holding out to you for free. Let me say it back to you, gently, so you know I was really listening. You are not failing. You are burning on the wrong fuel. There is a difference between those two things. And that difference is going to matter more than anything else I tell you today. A tired person who is failing needs to try harder. A lamp that is running low does not need to try at all. It needs oil. And the oil was never something you were supposed to manufacture out of yourself. You were praised for the wrong thing once, and the praise did real and lasting damage. People called you strong. What they mostly meant was that you were easy, that you never asked for anything, that your light cost them nothing to warm themselves beside. So you learned to earn affection by needing less and less, until needing anything at all started to feel like a small disgrace. Of course, you never learned how to be filled. You built an entire self out of being the one who keeps others lit. But a lamp that only ever gives and is never supplied does not become admirable. It simply goes out. And a lamp gone cold cannot will itself back into flame by trying. It can only be carried close to the oil again and held there patiently, until the burning returns on its own. I have watched you tend that light. I know the exact hour of the night you check on it, when the house has finally gone still and the last message is answered, and you lie there, listening for whatever might go wrong next. The mother keeping a small flame lit for a child who stopped calling months ago. I am nearer to that flame than you are. There is a kind of tiredness that has learned how to look like strength, and it hides well. A man who has not let anyone watch him falter in years carries it low in his shoulders. He calls it being dependable. You cover your emptiest moments so smoothly that even the people who love you have stopped asking whether you are all right. And the ones who warm themselves at your light have no idea how carefully you have been rationing it. Night after night, so there would be enough left to get everyone else through. Some of you have kept a flame lit for your own faith long after the feeling went out of it. You still show up. You still open the book. You still bow your head at the table and move your mouth through the words. But privately, you have wondered how long a person can keep a fire going on discipline alone, with no warmth coming back off it. Hear me before you decide anything about yourself from that. The fact that you kept showing up to a cold hearth is not evidence that your faith is dead. It is evidence of how faithful you are. Tending a lamp you were sure had gone dark, waiting in the ash for a heat you could no longer feel. I saw every one of those mornings. None of them were wasted on me. Some of you keep the lamp burning at work that takes everything and hands back a paycheck and a headache. Some of you keep it burning inside a marriage where, somewhere along the years, you became the only one still trying. Some of you keep it lit for a whole congregation, a whole family, a whole circle of people who lean on your steadiness. And then you drive home in the dark and cannot find the switch for your own room. I have sat in that dark room with you. I was not up there grading how brightly you managed to shine for everyone else. I was down close, waiting for you to notice the ache in your wrist from holding the lamp so high for so long without ever once being allowed to set it down. Think, for a moment, of a lamp left burning in a window. You have probably driven past one late at night and felt something soften in you without knowing why. Someone left that light on for a person who had not come home yet. It was an act of love, and also an act of hope, and also, if you looked long enough, a quiet act of exhaustion. Because someone was staying awake behind it. That window is you. You have been the light in the window for so many people, and you forgot there was ever supposed to be someone leaving a light on for you. So let me be that now. There is a lamp lit for you right now in a window you did not tend. You are not only the one who keeps watch, you are also the one who is watched over. Nobody sat you down and told you the light was your task. You worked that out on your own, the careful way a frightened person works out a rule that will keep them safe. Somewhere in a younger year, the flame nearly went out and no one came. No one noticed. No one carried anything toward you. So you decided, without ever putting it into words, that you would never let it get that low again. You made yourself the keeper. You made your own effort the fuel. It was a reasonable thing to believe back when no help was arriving, but a rule built in a starving year does not always hear the news that the starving year has finally ended, and the rule you built has quietly become the single heaviest thing you carry, from one day into the next. Place your hand flat at the base of your throat, right where a word first gathers before you decide whether it is safe to let it out. Not to press on it, only to feel how much you keep held there. So much of your whole life of effort has lived in that narrow place, the held breath, the swallowed complaint, the level voice you manufacture when everything underneath is shaking. I am not asking you to be steady for me. I already know precisely how unsteady you are underneath. And I want you to understand that this was never the thing that would change my mind about you. So let me take apart, slowly, the thing you have believed for years without ever quite daring to say it. You have been reading your own exhaustion as a verdict. When the flame gets low, a voice starts up in you and says, "You are not enough. You never really were." And now at last everyone is going to see it. I need you to hear this clearly. That voice is not mine. It has your old worry in it. It has the sound of that younger year in it. But nowhere in it is there any of my heart. The dimming of your light was never a sentence handed down against you. It was only a faithful lamp, telling the plain truth about how little oil was left. Watch how quickly you turn a physical fact into a moral one. When your phone runs low, you do not accuse it of being a bad phone. You do not lie awake wondering whether it deserves to be charged. You simply plug it in. Because you understand that running low is what happens to things that give out light and do work. But when you run low, you put yourself on trial. You treat the emptiness as proof of some flaw stitched into who you are. It is not proof of anything, except that you are alive, that you have been pouring yourself out, that no one poured anything back in for far too long. Emptiness is not a character flaw. It is a fuel gauge. And a fuel gauge near empty is not asking you to feel ashamed. It is asking you to be filled. And here is what shame does that is so quietly cruel. It keeps you away from the one thing that would actually help. When you believe your emptiness is a verdict against you, you hide it. You dim yourself in front of me the same way you dim yourself in front of everyone else, arriving composed, managing your face, offering me the tidy version instead of the true one. But I am not the oil for the person you pretend to be. I am the oil for the one who is actually running low. You cannot be filled while wearing a disguise. The moment you stop performing wholeness and let me see the wick burn down to almost nothing is not the moment you lose me. It is the moment the oil finally has somewhere to go. Here is the thing I most want you to see, and it is so simple that you have walked past it 1,000 times. A wick does not make the light. Sit with that for a moment, because it quietly undoes the whole way you have been living. The wick does not burn itself into flame by force of will. The wick has no fire of its own to summon. The wick only stays close to the oil, and the oil is what feeds the burning. All these years you have been asking your wick to be the entire lamp. You have been demanding that your own effort be the fuel and the fire and the flame, all at once. No wonder you feel scorched down to the thread. A wick asked to burn with no oil beneath it does not produce more light. It only chars itself down toward nothing, faster and faster, and calls the smoke a personal failure. And notice what a wick is actually for. It is not there to be impressive. It is not there to prove how much heat it can take. A wick is simply the place where the oil and the fire are allowed to meet. That is its entire calling. To stay soaked. To stay near the supply. To be the meeting point and not the source. You were built to be that meeting place between my spirit and a watching world. Not the furnace, not the fuel depot. The tender, ordinary spot where my light touches down and becomes visible to the people around you. You have been trying to be a sun. I made you to be a wick. And there is more dignity in that than you have ever let yourself believe. Ages ago, I gave a whole people a lamp that was meant to burn and never go dark. And I was very deliberate about where its light was allowed to come from. The oil for that lamp was never made by the lamp. It was pressed from olives grown in fields the lamp had never seen, beaten pure, and carried in from outside by hands that did not belong to the flame at all. Morning after morning it was brought and poured, so the light could go on, burning steadily through every single night, without ever once depending on itself to stay lit. I designed the whole arrangement to teach one lesson before there were even words to explain it. The light that actually lasts is always fed from somewhere other than the one who holds it up. And then, to a bone-tired man in a badly discouraged season, I turned that lesson into a picture he would never be able to shake. His people were trying to rebuild something holy out of a field of rubble. They were worn thin, and the work in front of them was far too large for the few hands they had left. So I let him see a lampstand of pure gold, burning full and bright. And on either side of it, 2 olive trees leaning in close, feeding their oil straight down into the bowl entirely on their own. No one sprinting off for more fuel. No one straining and sweating to keep the thing alight. The light simply burned, steady and unbothered, because the supply flowing into it never once stopped coming. He looked at all of it and did not understand. In exactly the way you have looked at your own life and not understood how it was supposed to work. So he asked what it meant, and you can hear the answer I gave him as if I am saying it straight to you. Because I am. This is what I said. Zechariah 4:6. Not by might nor by power, but by my Spirit, says the Lord of hosts. Read it slowly, because every single word in it was chosen to lift something off of your back. Not by might, not by how hard you are willing to push, not by power, not by how much you can grip and hold together on your own before something snaps, but by my Spirit. The oil inside that golden lamp was always my Spirit, poured in by me, keeping a light burning that no amount of human effort could ever have kept alive on its own. Now look again at the very first question I put to you. When did the flame become yours to keep alive? Here, finally, is the answer. It never did. It was never your fire to begin with. The light in you has been fed by my Spirit from the first day it was ever lit, and it did not go dim because you fell short of some standard. It went dim because you have spent your whole strength trying to be the oil, and being the oil was never once your task. Let that land where it hurts, because that is where it was aimed. Every time you drove yourself harder to keep the light going, you were doing my job for me with your own bare hands, and burning them in the process. You thought your tiredness meant you were bad at being the lamp. Your tiredness only ever meant that you were doing the impossible, trying to supply a fire that was designed from the very start to be supplied by someone stronger than you. You are not bad at this. You have simply been assigned a role that was never yours. You have been failing at it faithfully for years, and I am here to take it back. So let me hand you a way to set that down. Not all at once, just one honest step at a time, the way a tired person actually changes. The first step is only to believe it, not to feel it yet. The feeling comes much later. It comes on its own schedule, just to let it be true before it feels true. The flame is not yours to manufacture. The oil is mine to supply. You can believe that the way you believe the sun will rise while it is still fully dark outside. Quietly, ahead of the proof, before there is a single line of light on the horizon to confirm it. Faith is almost always a thing you hold in the dark, a little while before you are given anything to see by. The second step is to let it leave your mouth. Somewhere you are alone, a parked car, a kitchen at an odd hour, the edge of a bed no one else is sitting on. Speak one plain sentence into the quiet, low enough that only you and I will ever hear it. I am not the fire. Speak it once, without dressing it up, without making it sound brave or resolved. Something real happens when a true thing travels from deep in your chest, up through that narrow guarded place in your throat, and out into the open air. It stops being only a thought you can argue yourself back out of. It becomes something you have actually said. And a thing you have said is much harder to unknow. And if there is a name for the one thing you have been trying to keep burning entirely on your own, a person, a marriage, a calling, a fragile version of your own faith, you can set that word down in the comments below. Not to prove a thing to me, and not for anyone else to come along and read. Only so that it gets spoken once outside the walls of your own head, where you can finally look straight at it and begin to hand it over, instead of clutching it against your chest, like something that will vanish the second you loosen your grip. Breathe out slowly now, and let this breath leave longer than the one you drew in, longer than feels reasonable. You have been holding a great deal for a long time, and a little of it is allowed to go out on that single breath. As the air empties from you, let the old idea drain out along with it. The idea that if you stop tending the flame for even one moment, the whole thing collapses into darkness. It will not. The oil does not stop flowing simply because you finally let your arm come down and rest. The third step is the smallest one of all, and it is the one that lasts the longest. Somewhere you will run across it again. The inside cover of the book beside your bed. The corner of the page where you keep the shape of your week. The small note stuck to a mirror you almost never bother to change. Write 3 words where you will find them. Not my strength. Leave them sitting right there, so the exhausted version of you can stumble onto them on the morning you have forgotten every bit of this, and you will forget. Everyone does. That is not a failure either. That is simply what it means to be a lamp instead of the sun. You do not have to remember it flawlessly. You only ever have to keep drifting back toward the oil. Do not be discouraged by how often you will have to come back. You may return to this same truth 100 times and feel, each time, as though you are learning it new. That is not you being slow. That is the shape of every real thing. Bread is eaten daily. Lamps are filled daily. You were never meant to receive one great supply that would last you the rest of your life and leave you self-sufficient forever. You were meant to be fed, morning by morning, in a rhythm that keeps you close to me. The self-sufficient never have any reason to come back, and so they are never once held. But you, who have to keep returning to the same steady supply of oil again and again, receive my nearness every single time you make the trip. What you have spent your life calling your weakness is the very thing that keeps carrying you home to me. I would not trade that in you for all the tireless strength in the world. Your need is not the flaw in you. It is the hinge that the whole door of your closeness with me swings on. The returning is not the failure. The returning is the relationship. Let me leave you with one small thing you can actually keep. This week, when you feel the light in you begin to gutter and thin, and you will most likely at the very same hour it always seems to happen, try not reaching first for more effort. Try reaching for me instead. It can be a single sentence. It can be far less than a sentence. Fill this. That is all it has to be. You may not feel any rush of fresh strength the first time or the 5th time, but somewhere around the 20th time you refuse to whip a worn-out flame into burning harder, and you simply ask to be supplied instead, you are going to notice something. The light stayed on anyway, and it cost you far less than keeping it lit has ever cost you before. And watch what that small habit does to the people around you over time. The ones who lean on your light are not actually helped by your exhaustion. No matter how much you have told yourself that your suffering is the price of loving them well, they are helped by the light itself. A steady, unhurried, well-fed light does more for a frightened child or a struggling friend than a bright, desperate, guttering one ever could. When you let me supply you, you do not love the people around you less. You love them out of something that will not collapse. You become a warmth they can come near without fearing they are taking the last of you. Because they no longer are, there will still be hard seasons. I am not promising you a life where the wind never reaches the flame. What I am promising is that the supply does not depend on the weather. On the days the work is heavy and the room is cold and nothing in you feels remotely holy, the oil is still on its way to you. You will not always feel it arrive. Feeling was never the mechanism, and it never had to be. The worn-out people standing in that field of rubble did not feel the 2 trees pouring anything into the lamp. They simply discovered, one exhausting morning after another, that the light was somehow still burning. That is what I am holding out to you. Not a constant sensation of strength coursing through you, but a steady light that keeps on burning through the exact seasons. Your own feelings had already sworn it could not possibly survive. I want you to picture, just for a breath, what your life begins to look like once you stop confusing your exhaustion with your worth. The lamp still burns. The people you love still find their way by your light. But you are no longer clawing the fuel out of your own body to keep the thing going. You slowly become a person who is carried, even while they carry others. You start to give out of a supply that is not running down, because the supply was never coming out of you to begin with. That is not weakness, and it never was. That is the design. That is the exact way I built the light to work from the very beginning. Long before anyone ever taught you to do it the brutal, lonely, hand-cramping way. The brightest thing about you was never the size of your effort. It was the oil you did not even realize you were being handed, quietly, day after ordinary day. On your strongest mornings, when you felt almost capable, that steadiness was me. On the nights you were certain you had finally failed for good, that was me too. keeping a low flame alive down in the dark while you slept, so that there would still be something burning when you opened your eyes. You have never once lit yourself, not a single day of your life, and you are not about to burn out on a fuel you were never carrying alone. So let me ask you one more time, now that you have heard all of it. Whose flame is it really? And this time I do not think you would go quiet on me. This time I think you would let out the longest breath you have held in years. And finally tell me the truth you were far too tired to reach for at the start. It is yours. The fire is yours. The oil is yours to give, and mine only to keep receiving from you. And when you finally say it in that order, the light held, the light given, the light received back, something deep in you sets the lamp down at last. It rests its aching arm and lets the light go right on burning without your grip clenched white around it. Rest there with me a moment. There is truly nothing you are required to hold up right now. The flame does not need your fear to stay lit. It never did. I am the keeper of the very flame you were never meant to carry alone. I am the oil that does not run dry, the supply that arrives before you have finished asking. Lean the whole tired weight of your flickering light against me, and let me be what has quietly been holding it up all along. Amen. One last question, and then I will let you rest. What is the one light you have been trying to keep burning by your own strength for far too long now? Name it in the comments below. I read them, and I keep every one. And if a certain person came quietly to mind while you were reading this, someone running low and holding their own lamp far too high, share this with them. They were never meant to be the oil either.